good? Okay. Is it 1 or 2? Call this meeting of the Madison Elementary School District Board, Governing Board meeting to order. Ms. Humphries, will you please call the roll?
President Gresham,
Here.
Vice President Kazi.
I'm
sorry,
no.
Vice President Thompson.
Present.
It's the rain. I'm going to blame it on the rain.
It's all okay, just no.
Vice President Thompson,
Present.
Member Holcomb,
Here.
Member Kazi,
Here.
Member Spear.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you. Do I have any changes or a motion to adopt the agenda?
Move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Holcomb, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Please vote. And the agenda has been adopted. Item 2.1, we do have a scheduled executive session. Could I have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. Thompson, seconded by Ms. Causey, and we are in a, do we vote? Please vote.
You have to vote first. Then you can hit it.
I'm really excited to the gavel. Let's vote.
Just hang on to it.
Swing it around.
Yeah. Maybe. Okay. Now we are in executive session.
we're theater at everyone, and we're gonna perform.
Okay.
Is there like a good place they could like put their stuff so it's out of the way that we can grab it?
I mean, no one's gonna be
Right
here,
here.
or if you want to put it like by the chairs, that's fine.
Okay, so guys, I think we could put our stuff right here. Can we just steal one of the chairs to use in our scene?
Yeah.
Easy. Okay, yay.
And the board members, they're just meeting in the executive session right now, so they'll come back out at 6 on the dot.
Okay, we were told it's 5:45. And our performance
They
was at
they
5:45.
they might come out a little earlier.
Okay. Okay. That's different.
You know what? It probably is 5:45.
It probably.
I'm just IT. I just kind of support,
Yes.
so
We
they
love that.
probably know better than me.
Well, we're new at this too. So, okay, I'm gonna grab one of the chairs in the back then.
Yeah.
And then you guys, so
Whichever one.
people, we're basically our performance space. I mean, could be, well, so the board's here
Mhm.
and your audience is here. So I feel like if we literally perform like right here, then some of the board will be able to like see and some of your audience, like we could diagonal it right here.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Maybe more like we could even just be like straight here, cause then
So like if I'm sitting here,
let's just do it like this.
They sit here, and then people who come to see, so like those of you who came to just watch will be sitting out here.
It's very fancy and I feel very important.
Yeah. I would still maybe. grab it. Let's grab it. I'm gonna grab one.
I thought it was gonna be like a big menacing stage and then it's like the board there.
The board.
Bro, next thing you know, just Simon Cowell walks out. It's menacing, especially if you do this. Like hiding. It feels like you like went on the bus to get here.
they even get their own plaques.
Oh my god. Okay, guys, we're mature. Yeah, you guys, we're mature.
Guys. Hey guys, everybody come here really quickly. So, even though the meeting hasn't started yet, they are live streaming this room right now. So we want to whisper only, okay? Thank you for that.
Yeah, and the mics are around here, so
I was just talking to Maddie about this.
Okay. Where do we?
You said have you considered it? Okay, look. You came on. Okay, they're actually going because my doctor said I'll go to a week camp. And
That's something I don't know what'll come out of my mouth. And then please. Are you announcing it? No. I'm announcing. Okay. So now I'm
It's not your fault. I said wait.
okay. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Ray, Ava. Okay, so the plan is I'm gonna get up here. I'm gonna try to remember to say my name because I always forget. And introduce myself. I'm gonna introduce you guys. We're gonna do teacher mashup. Movie
mashup.
Whatever we
I
can
kept
laugh
doing
about.
that.
I'm gonna introduce movie mashup. You guys will do your thing. Then I'm going to introduce our director of Little Women,
You just like.
and then Holly, you know what you're saying?
yes.
Okay, and then Little Women, you're gonna go. Okay, so maybe, I think if we all just kind of stand off to the side, when people can, when it gets started until it's time. Okay, if you're not performing, you can sit in the audience.
No, that's not it.
No, not tonight. Not feeling that tonight.
I know.
It's all laugh.
Putting on a put a more professional background.
No, they just have.
You guys, because you're on live stream, I'm gonna take a moment, so I'm ready.
TV. Nobody actually cares that much. I know, I didn't say that. Oh, the microphone. And they no, they're ready. I assure you, I never was TV. I've been bringing so little TV now. So because I have one last year, I said, I don't think it's true. Guys, you make one too. And last year I made a joke over a group chat that Lola was taking on, and I was like, someone was like, oh, I'm having this really good week with my friend. I was like, not that. Those are all Lola's. And Lola got mad at me, and now she wants me, and now she unfollowed me. And after she literally went through my other friend's text, took her phone, and to see if there was anything about her against my other friend's will. And I'll never forgive you for saying that. Please forgive me, John. Never. I said, here's the truth. I'm not gonna ask you. Not too large, not too small. Thanks. They got me a general slow. That's what gets their attention. Right. What makes them feel like they're feeling out. That makes sense. I'm tired of being with you two. I'm in dogs. Remember, because I am 5'2" and I am 5'4". I'm 5 foot without shoes and 5 shoes. And then is that you? No, I need like a safety pin here, but.
Hey, guys, when you see other adults come out here, put your phone on silent. There would be nothing more embarrassing than being in the middle of a scene and having your own phone on. Eh?
Mine's always on silent.
It's new information. What you said? I was just being funny and sarcastic.
What? I said something.
You said what you said.
Exactly. The board's gonna come in and they're gonna be like. Anything about how we have like replacements?
I was not gonna mess with all of that.
So it could be like, we have.
I just feel like that's kind of, and then they'd be like, why are we doing it? Like, if I'm sitting here.
I feel like they're gonna just be excited that there's more than some people.
Oh,
Yeah. No, I'm just gonna, sure. I'm just gonna like introduce you guys as advanced staff. And that we have 2 short little. Actually, I'm gonna say Goober.
2 minutes exactly.
And they told me what I thought. introduce the director of the show, we'll see how that. I mean, I don't know what I'm not an actress. We'll see what we're doing now. You know, I mean, I was telling you, Mom, I wish to get all the shows.
Do you have your badge? I have a couple of mine too. Oh, that's all right. They're all, they were like.
It's a show, you'll never be it. Because you don't want to.
I'm having all their message. It's a
Like, not just because you're white. The only way that I've seen show. It's actually Okay, I swear to God, this was the one.
I'm sure I did. No, I know I just did. Like if you did it. Oh yeah. It might have been in a different teacher. Yeah, I read it because it had like
desert stages there.
it had a big, long.
That's what living. So they asked me.
Yeah, no, but it was a small.
Is it fine?
And I remember it being up.
There was
Probably didn't say.
apparently some girl showed up
I went in there and
she
he made me read
had
and I
tanner skin.
understand.
She told them that she was person of color and she wasn't, and then she got cast as the lead role. And then news got out that she wasn't a person of color, that she was, and so they recasted it with a different girl. And the girl who was originally gonna play it, which show is this? Rooster threatened to sue them, and so they just canceled the show altogether. There's plenty of roles for like, no answer, just gonna go audition for stuff that. Yeah, that's not. I mean, white people have pretty easy to or like.
Oh, then I probably was I just guess I wasn't looking. I mean,
Just like a lot of the time,
oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm not used to going.
stereotype.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
it's
like
like
a performance thing.
Yeah. Dance showcase.
What?
But you got it.
Yeah.
Just.
Oh.
How bare
I just get confused on.
I'm more of a morning person.
It's like I don't. So yeah.
Oh, so you know how you know.
No.
I always. Oh, you don't know what
Something.
well. To me. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, we're all here. We're training. I was like, yeah, my dad's stepdad is Hispanic, like, both his parents are Hispanic and, three, but he was born in the US. It was like, wait, so you're not white? Yeah,
Because that.
yeah, and then he saw my dad one time and he was like, oh, yeah, you look white, but your dad doesn't look that white. There are people are tan, it's called being tan. Yeah, because like my dad has.
You guys, we're performing over there. Turns out we're gonna perform over here facing this way. Oh, excited. This way, facing this way, and then we'll turn around and watch us.
Oh. So,
No, like this, facing this way.
This way, we then.
Okay. So, wait, since we're waiting, can I see movie mashup over here for a second?
to like shift food, because like I'm looking for one of those, I feel like they have something to look through. Oh, I told you about how we said it was like. And then little women, can I see a second?
Yes.
I played, believe it or not, for some reason you picked me to do the wall. The same interlude as just before, but I was not like such a wall is a heavy thing.
I'm not in charge.
Hi everybody, if you would go ahead and have a seat, we are going to get started. I have not met you before, hi, I'm Melanie Lang. I'm the theater teacher over at Madison #1, and tonight we have brought some of our advanced acting group here to show you two different things. And our first one here we did this morning for 4th graders. And this is a little taste of movie mashup. So each person's going to be playing a movie character, and you'll be able to see if you can figure it out. All right. 3, 2, 1.
You can't marry Mary just yet.
Howdy!
Well, turns upside down, the best thing to do is turn right along with it.
Let it grow. I call this a need.
Anna, what do you know about true love? Come on, Bullseye. Shut your mouth, Michael. We are not a codfish.
I speak for the trees. How bad can I possibly be? Let's see.
Let it go. Let it go.
Yeehaw!
A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
Hey, I'm not a peanut. The last truffle seed.
Love was not a frozen heart. Of course.
No! Buzz!
Everything is possible, even the impossible.
No, the ones from the lower. Yeah. This is what happens when you go to the board.
We're going to show you one more little thing, and this is a short scene from our Little Women show that we will be performing March 1st and March 2nd at the Madison. And before they start, I would like to introduce you to our director of Little Women, which is Holly Lewis.
Hello, my name is Holly Lewis. I am the student director of our play Little Women. Like Miss Ling just said, we're going to be having it on March 1st and March 2nd. We would absolutely love if any of you guys attended. And if you're unfamiliar with Little Women and the Little Women story, I'll give a brief synopsis of what happened in the previous scene so you understand. So our sister Amy, she got very annoyed at her sister Jo, and this is the result of that. So thank you and enjoy.
How was the play? Did you enjoy it?
Oh yes, it was charming. It was brilliant and wonderful. Has anyone seen my notebook? Amy, you were reading it last. Have you seen my notebook? No. Amy, you've got it. No, I haven't. You know where it is then? No, I don't. That's a fib. It isn't. I haven't got it. I don't know where it is now, and I don't care. You know something, and you better tell it once or I'll make you. Scold as much as you like. You'll never see our silly old book again. Why not? I burnt it up. What? My book that I put my whole heart into and meant to finish before Father got home? Have you really burnt it? Yes, I did. I told you I'd make you pay for being so cross. You wicked girl! I'll never forgive you as long as I live. Please forgive me. Never!
Okay, that is what we have for tonight. Thank you so much for inviting us. We can absolutely introduce. Okay. Tonight we have Jo was played by Nina. I'm going to mispronounce her. Oteja. And then Beth is played by Lillian Showalter. And Amy's played by Ren Anglin. Meg is played by Riley Gherkin. And our movie mashup, we have Ella Dutro, we have Haley Lang, we have Madeline Stone, Trent Siegler, and again Holly Lewis. Thank you guys so much. And again, March 1st, March 2nd for Little Women. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll wait.
I know. She's getting ready for high school. Off to Central she goes. Yeah, it's a little one over here. Yeah.
I try to. Sometimes they're a little upset.
Yeah, Harry Potter. But you know what? But sometimes, yeah.
Totally. But this one's
Yeah.
Oh, you were the bathroom.
right out here.
Across the hall.
I will call the regular meeting back to order. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Kyler, would you like to lead the Pledge of Allegiance for us? Do you have a choice? Thank you, and we will start with our superintendent report. Dr. Guerin.
President Gresham, Vice President Thompson, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. Last week was Parent-Teacher Conference Week. It was great to see so many parents on campus meetings and joining virtually in support of their students. Recently, and we actually have a visual of this, if we could pull up the two pictures. Two of our amazing teachers were recognized for their national board recertification. It's so important that we had to see photos. So first, we're proud to celebrate Joanna Ewald, art teacher at Madison Rose Lane. She's a recertification, and if I'm not mistaken, she's now certified in 2 separate areas. So she may go for a third, I just don't know. And then we have then we have Hannah Jones, a very familiar face from district office, who's our MTSS specialist, also recertified. National Board, otherwise known as the Oscars for teaching, is a voluntary professional certification for teachers. Teachers who have achieved this certification have demonstrated expertise in their subject area, expertise in their ability to effectively teach students, and a commitment to professional development. We will celebrate these 2 amazing teachers at our end of the year celebration. Also, it is School Counselor Week. Have you thanked your school counselor this week? I want to thank our dedicated, hard-working school counselors who not only support our students' well-being, families, and they also do an amazing job supporting our staff. I hear rave reviews from each school about the level of support. We appreciate you. Before the board meeting, Madison hosted an employee mixer meet and greet event called Fall in Love with Madison. It was the first event of this type, and I believe was a resounding success. We had such a tremendous turnout. I met candidates looking for just a variety of positions. I want to thank the HR team and all the staff who attended this event and volunteered for the event. We all know that recruiting and retaining the best employees is the #1 thing that we can do for our students. So thank you for such a great event this evening.
Anything else, Dr. Guerin? All right, thank you. We'll move on to governing board member reports. Ms. Spear, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you. I also wanted to add my appreciation to all of our school counselors. It was not that long ago that none of our schools actually had counselors at them. We only had social workers, and they were spread across a number of schools. And I just wanted to express my appreciation to this board and for hiring them, for finding the budget in order to do that. Thank you, Ms. Garvey and team. But also for our counselors and how they serve our students and our staff. They're a critical piece to our puzzle, and I just want to say thank you to each and every one of them. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Causey?
I want to echo what my colleague Ms. Spear shared, and I don't know if you remember, but during the Great Recession, initially their positions were eliminated, and then they struck a deal that if they could work for half the pay, they would retain their positions for at least for the, I think, 6 months maybe, or it was a year, I can't remember. And I remember the counselor at our school still worked full-time, even though she was being paid half-time. The level of commitment that they provide to our students is just beyond, is beyond what you can imagine. So they are just incredibly appreciated. Wanted to also share that the Madison Education Foundation and the Madison Center for the Arts had a strategic planning session, was it last week? Seems like weeks ago, but it was last week, and the session focused on developing key performance indicators for our goals. We made some progress. I feel like we went forward. There are a few areas where we felt a little like we'd gone backwards, but sometimes that happens, I think, during strategic planning. the Madison Education Foundation. Board will meet this Thursday, and I just wanted to give you all an update since I'm the board delegate. My focus on the board has been board governance work, trying to get their systems as well as board training kind of up to the level that I think will allow us to recruit board members who have had experience with working on nonprofit boards. And so we recently did a survey to assess our board skill level, which we'll be sharing with the board so that we, along with a new board job description as well as board commitment form, will be better prepared to recruit high quality board members that fit some of the skill set gaps and diversity gaps that we really need to fill on our board. I'm really excited. There, during the Madison Education Foundation Madison Center for the Arts Strategic Planning session, one of the participants, who is the #1 dance teacher, shared that she had a student come back and actually do the choreography for one, basically put it together for one of her performances for one of her dance classes about a month ago, perhaps. And I mean, that kind of candidate to have on the Madison Education Foundation board, a student who went through our program and found dance to be not just something that they loved, but something that they have decided to take on as a career, that we've actually invited them back to participate with our schools, would be a phenomenal, participant. So those are the types of people we'll be looking for. And obviously we'll love the participation of you all as you potentially identify board members we start to share with you who we're looking for. And then finally, I just wanted to remind everyone that the very big, most important gala for the Madison Education Foundation, Viva Madison, is scheduled for Saturday, April 27th. We're obviously still seeking sponsorships, silent auction items, and obviously your participation. It's a really important event. It's where the bulk of our fundraising occurs during our fiscal year, and we would certainly appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitra. So we are, or will be, looking for foundation board members. And yes, definitely go to the gala. And we have the museum, Night at the Museum coming up as well. So that will be...
No, March.
It's in March. So definitely look for that. That's a fun one, too. I'm working one of the tables. I can't remember which one. March 22nd. Thank you. Mr. Holcomb?
Yes. I got an opportunity to go over and see the Love Madison. And I love the presentation. I also love the food. Our caterer was phenomenal. I know, Dr. Lomley, this is a lot of work, but do you have anything else you want to say? Because it looked like a great event. It was really about that.
We're pretty happy. We had tons of RSVPs. I think maybe the rain scared a few people away, but we were trying to count up. It looked like about 50-ish people. And so it was everyone that I talked to had a good time and walked around and met principals. I had comments from the principals that they really appreciate this event. It's a little bit different from our normal job fair. And so I already had at least one principal say, maybe we should do this instead of a job fair early next year. So it was fun.
Good. And I got to talk to a student teacher who was at MTA, and not only did she tell me how much she enjoyed it, how much fun she was having, but she had this grin across her face. It was just phenomenal. So yeah, it was good. It was good to see how much joy there was in that room. Also, I wanted to. Because of a partnership with one of our community partners that's doing a fun run for JA, Madison is providing cones to help them do their track through the parking lot. Because of that, they gave 100 free entries to Madison staff, parents, and students to go there. And so that's a great community partnership that we have, and that's on February 24th. Yes. You're going to be there leading the pack, right?
I will be walking in the rear or helping check in volunteers, whatever is needed.
Any event. And I also want to let people know about the wonderful presentation we had from the #1 theater kids. Before they actually started, I got to talk to some of them about the theater and what their favorite plays were. And it was real interesting. Just already they've got this great love of theater, and you could see what the level of confidence and how much these kids enjoyed it, but also the confidence to be able to get out in front of a crowd is phenomenal to see. That's all. Other than I plan to come to the gala, and I'm hoping to bring my slot machines for the Las Vegas. So, in any event, that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Vice President Thompson.
Thank you. I also want to thank the students for coming out tonight for the showcase. Their theater presentation was great. I'm looking forward to seeing Little Women at the beginning of March. I think they said March 1st and 2nd, so mark your calendars for that. I also want to thank the HR team for the event tonight. I thought it was a great twist on getting people introduced to Madison. I love that we had multiple people talking about how they were introduced or fell in love with Madison, and it's such a great hook. So congratulations on the event. Hopefully it will turn into a few positions we've been desperately trying to fill being filled. So congratulations. I also wanted to thank all of our teachers who just last week went through all the parent-teacher conferences. I know heavy lift, and that is deeply appreciated. I can't believe it's already February and we're barreling toward the end of this semester. So that's all I have for today. Looking forward to Viva in April as well.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Yes, I want to thank Chef Alfonso at the Madison. He did the food for the event tonight, and he always does an amazing job. So good. So thank you to Chef, and thank you to Number One for bringing your students here. Miss Lang she does a great job with the theater department there. So that was fun. Let's see. Some of us were at the district spelling bee. We haven't had a meeting since then, right? So that went well. Thank you, Miss Spear, for pronouncing. I always want to say announcing or something, but it's pronouncing. But it went well. We have our winner and a runner-up, and they'll go to regionals, and then if they win that, they'll go to states. So, and the state spelling bee will be at the Madison, which is fun. You should come watch. Let's see. I don't know if any of you saw in the North Central News, but there was a former Madison student. He's now in the Phoenix Union High School District, but he just received a full ride to Yale. And they mentioned that he had gone to Madison. I'm not sure which school. Maybe we can find out, but that is really cool to see. And lastly, I will be next week, I think it's Monday, there's a School Board Association Advocacy Day at the Capitol. So I'll be there. I'm sure Ms. Kuz will be there as a board member of ASPA, so we'll report back on that. And that's all I have for that. So we'll move on to our consent agenda. Do I have any changes, anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll take a motion.
I move we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
I will second that.
Moved by Mr. Holcomb, seconded by Ms. Spear. And that passes. And next up is call to public. Ms. Humphries, do we have any calls to the public?
We have no calls to public today.
Thank you, ma'am. And our information item is we have two information items. So I guess we'll start with 8.1. Dr. Guerin.
President Gresham, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. I'm very pleased we have a special guest, Ms. Stephanie Hendricks, who leads our Madison Advocate Group, and the legislature has been very busy, and so she's going to provide us an update.
Do I sit here? Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to the meeting, and thank you so much for having me. As Dr. Guerin mentioned, I am a member of the Madison Advocates. We are a parent-run advocacy group that focuses on what's going down at the legislature, mostly. Keeping track, keeping our parents informed, stuff like that. It's, what happens down there directly impacts our schools. So legislative session has started, and we're starting the whole process again like we do every single year of tracking the bills that come down, and then These are a couple that I just wanted to highlight tonight for you guys and anybody out there watching. So the first one is SB 1097, and there were a couple articles in our local newspapers last week about this particular bill, so some of you may have already heard the kerfuffle, but it would change our school board elections from being nonpartisan to being partisan, meaning that candidates would have to identify on the ballot which party they are registered with. We do not support this bill. We believe that it would negatively impact our school boards. Our school boards are here to help our public schools run efficiently, run better, and to enact a vision for the schools. And I think personally, injecting potential partisan issues into the daily functioning of the school board would it would affect business. You know, we wouldn't be able to get as much stuff done. This bill is moving. It has already passed out of the Senate Education Committee and the Rules Committee in the Senate, which means the next step is that it will be going down to the floor of the Senate for a vote, and then it would have to go through the House, and then it would have to go, if it passes out of all of that, through all of that, then it would have to go to Governor Hobbs, who can either sign it or veto it. We are very confident that Governor Hobbs does not support this bill, so we don't expect it to become law, but, you know, who knows? Things can change next year. The next bill is SB 1105. It would expand the definition of school mental health professionals to include psychologists. So what that means is that the funds that come from the school safety program could be used to hire psychologists for the school campuses. It has already passed the Senate Education Committee and the Rules Committee, and the next step will be to be heard before the full Senate. There is also a companion bill in the House. That one is not moving as of yet, but you know, I think it's a good sign that it's moving out of committee in the Senate, and hopefully it'll keep doing that and we can get this bill turned into a law. Finally, the last bill that I wanted to highlight is HB 2719. It would require all school bond and override measures to have 60% or more approval from eligible voters, which is different than current law, current law is 50.1% of the eligible voters that actually vote for that measure. So I ran some numbers, and just to kind of give you an idea of the impact, this last election, we had over a 60% approval from the people that actually voted. There were 41,314 eligible voters, approximately 12,500 voters of those eligible voters actually voted. And then 60% of them voted yes. If this law were to come to be, we would have needed last year 24,788 people to vote yes. It would I think it would be pretty difficult to get new bonds and overrides passed under those circumstances. It has been set to be heard in the House Municipal Oversight and Elections Committee tomorrow. Moving on from that joyful topic, I wanted to touch on as well empowerment scholarship accounts, or AKA school vouchers. I think every year bills are introduced in the legislature to try to implement some oversight on ESAs. As of right now, none of those bills get heard, they don't get passed, they just kind of stagnate. While there are many bills that would offer some good oversight for this program, as of right now, none of them are up for a hearing. Nothing's kind of moving forward. Now, Governor Hobbs has indicated she would like to implement some more oversight measures, but that remains to be seen this year. Budget. Money. So I think we probably already know, because it's, again, something that's being spoken about in public consumption. The state is facing a $1.7 billion budget shortfall for this coming fiscal year. Believe Governor Hobbs has indicated she does not intend or plan to cut funding for our schools, but we also, the chances that there's going to be an increase like there have been these last few years, which have been great, it's pretty slim. And then the other sort of concern we have or upcoming potential issue is renewal of Prop 123 funds. The increase in the funding will expire next year in 2025. So in order to maintain the current level of funding, the legislature would have to pass a bill, which would then go to the voters on the ballot in November, our general election in November, and then the voters would have to pass it. So legislators are considering bills, and it looks like both parties agree that they want to extend Prop 123 funding. It's just a matter of whose idea is going to win. Right now, the Republican plan is actually going to be heard in the Senate Education Committee tomorrow. Their plan would be to maintain the current level of funding and require all of the funding be used for teacher salaries only. It would mandate annual increases, and it would, it would remove any flexibility that a school board could have, where the money right now goes into the general fund, and it could be used to plug holes where they occur, which happens, and that's just not an option with this particular plan. Governor Hobbs has also given an outline of what she would like to see done, which would be to renew Prop 123 and actually increase the percentage of money that gets pulled from out of the land trust from 6.9 to 8.9%. She also would want to put some restrictions on how funds are used, but it would be, it would provide more flexibility. So a portion of the funds would be dictated to be used for compensation. So it's not just restricted to salaries, it's not restricted to teacher salaries. And it could be used for things like benefits. And then a portion would be used for school safety and security, and then a portion would go to general education funding. So that's where we are right now. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Yes, comments, questions, Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Madam President. Just a couple of thoughts on the bills that you presented on. First of all, on the issue of partisan elections for school boards. School boards are a place, as you said, where we're able to come together regardless of our party and have a conversation, a meaningful conversation about what our schools should look like for all students, no matter what their creed or color or political background. And while some believe that the letter or color after your name somehow makes a difference and tells a story to the rest of the world, it's really not. It's not true. And thank you for your advocacy against that bill. Second, just to talk a little bit about about the bill that would require 60% turnout,
HB
60% or more voter turnout for the issue. There are not sitting legislators who have had 60% turnout in their own elections. We barely have 60% turnout in some elections on the presidential at the top of the ticket. And to make that a bar for any election is frankly, it's ridiculous. It's offensive to the voters. It's offensive to local control. And if you want to say no one should be able to raise any taxes ever, then just pass a law and say no one should raise taxes ever. It's a conversation we as boards and the community have about the needs of our school districts, and that should continue. There shouldn't be any artificial bar on what turnout is. It's just ridiculous. So thank you for your advocacy against that bill as well. Finally, I want to thank you for your advocacy around extension of 123. We are facing so many fiscal cliffs in education, with federal money after COVID finally slowly evaporating, with the budget shortfall what it is today, with 123 expiring. All of these things are things that our state legislature should be taking care of. I'm thankful for our fiscal vigilance at this school district. We talked about a few months ago the need to have a rainy day fund. It's not just raining outside, folks. It's good to have plans when tough times, because there will always be tough times. But things like sustained funding and flexibility in that funding are incredibly important. So I want to thank you and the advocates for weighing in on those issues. I also want to say that in your introduction about what the advocates do, you said, a focus at the legislature, but you had a massive hand in helping pass those bonds and overrides, because the board cannot advocate on behalf of those. And you as community leaders did that heavy lifting, and it is greatly appreciated. So thank you for that work as well.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Anything else for Ms. Hendricks, Ms. Kazi?
I want to just also add my thanks. I used to be involved with Madison Advocates, and I know it is a lot of work and sometimes frustrating because the house is on fire and people don't seem to know about it. So thank you for being so vigilant and making sure that our community, and especially our parents and those other members, grandparents, are apprised of what's going on so that their voice can be heard. I want to ask a question, and I don't know if any of our attorney friends on the board can weigh in, but on that 60% piece of legislation, is that not a constitutional issue? Like, to me, it feels as if your one vote doesn't count like a one vote when you put that kind of percentage requirement in.
Mr. Holcomb?
Without giving legal advice to the board, I think there's an argument that is a disenfranchising of the voters, because it's not that you have to have 60% turnout to pass. Isn't it? You have to pass. It has to pass by 60% of the voters. So if you had 60% of the voters vote, it still wouldn't pass unless you got every vote. There's no election, so it makes it impossible. I mean, it is by any practical means at all for a bond to pass. So I think there's an argument with the Supreme Court that we have, and we have a fairly conservative Supreme Court. I think you'd have trouble, winning that argument, but I think it's a valid question.
And then I just wanted to just make sure that the viewers at home, or that we're just reminded that the legislature has in the past required that any tax increase passed by supermajority. So essentially what they're trying to do is put the same kind of handcuffs on our local control of allowing our voters to decide through their own votes whether or not to pass our bonds and overrides. And I think, again, as we've stated, it's been previously stated by members of this board, it is just incredibly insulting that our voters are not being heard. They get to vote, and they get to tell us whether or not they want to approve our bonds and overrides. And I think that is why, that's why we answer their questions. We go to events to explain so that they can be informed voters. But what has happened at the state legislature, because of the requirement for a supermajority, is that they have been unable to pass tax increases, even when we need to as a state to serve the needs of our state.
Ms. Spear?
Thank you so much for all of what you do. I have not had the pleasure of serving on the advocates, but I have had the pleasure of running bond and override campaigns prior to my service here, and I just want to say thank you so much for your efforts. I also wanted to remind any legislators that might be watching, as found in The Price of Freedom, on the limitations of law In 1922, our country was conceived in the theory of local self-government. It has been dedicated by long practice to that wise and beneficent policy. It is the foundation principle of our system of liberty. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spear. Mr. Holcomb.
Yes, thank you. By the way, I was corrected by my more knowledgeable colleague that it has to be 60% turnout, not 60% of the voters and of eligible voters. But it's still impossible. There's no election that gets 60% turnout. On the requiring candidates to declare their party, there's a reason why school districts have never, that's always been nonpartisan, because school board decisions are nonpartisan decisions. They are about running a school, they are about taking care of your community, taking care of your kids. And the worst thing that you can have, in my opinion, is to have someone come on the board because they want to serve an ideology or they have an agenda, a specific agenda. Because what we do on the board is not serve ideology or party or that. We serve the community, we serve the staff, we serve the families, and we serve the kids. And so that's why I think that is, and it's also, there are very good people who start their political career on a school board and go forward, but using the school board as a stepping stone and as a purpose for that to go on to higher office is not, again, the purpose of being on a school board. It is to serve the kids and the families in the community. I don't know if you're tracking, I know it was up last year, and I thought it was running again this year. There's a bill that would preclude any person or entity or company that contributed in any way to a bond from being awarded a contract under that bond. And that is a not very well camouflaged poison pill to try to kill bonds as well, because can cause basically a complete dry up of funding for bonds so that we can get that information about the bonds and their purpose could be get out to the community. So I really appreciate all you do. I think your school board members could go down there and we could talk all we want, but our opinion, to be perfectly honest, gets discounted because we're seen as having a prejudice in that, or in going down there. But the families, the parents, the people who we serve, those are the voices that get heard the most. And I don't know if you have it, but for people who are listening and for out there, how would somebody get their voice heard on any of these topics?
That's a great question. There's several ways. The old pick up the phone and call your representative, email them, and then the other way that's probably the easiest, except for that initial step of getting everything set up, is to use what's called the request to speak system, which the legislature has set up and provides an avenue for people to be able to, it's literally a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It actually has a thumbs up little emoji in there. So just to kind of show your support or disapproval of bills that mean something to you, that sort of you care about, issues that you care about. And these sort of up or down votes are a matter of public record, and oftentimes they are displayed during committee hearings for particular bills, and they are even sometimes referenced by the legislators during committee hearings. Like if a bill has very, very strong support, but maybe it's not looking like it won't pass, a discussion can be had around, well, why are the public supports these bills, why don't we? So there is a system to register, and actually you could reach out to the advocates and we could help you get registered for Request to Speak if that's something that is wanted. You can find us on our Facebook page, which is just at Madison Advocates. And then you can, like I said, you can also directly contact your representative, which you can also find that information, including which district you live in. You can contact us and we can help you figure that out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yes, I mean, second to everything my fellow board members here said, and please, 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 everyone who's watching, contact your legislators. Even if you don't live in Madison, still contact the ones in the district you live in. It's super important that they hear from everyone, use request to speak, follow the Madison advocates for sure. I don't know if anyone noticed, but the theme of a lot of these bills is defunding public education and taking away our local control of our local school boards. So we don't want that to happen. And I will also say, although I slightly disagree with Mr. Holcomb, because I believe as a board member, it is part of my job to advocate for our schools and what is best for our students and our district. So I do make my voice heard to my representatives on the regular. And although I do think as a board member, they do kind of, they might take it with a grain of salt, but that's okay because I'm also a constituent and a parent. So I do that. And thank you so much for being here. I think it's super important, especially during the legislative session, that everyone hears what's going on and hopefully they'll get involved. And so thank you, and thanks for all you do and continue. And if anyone's interested in helping, they can also contact you, correct?
Yes.
So thank you so much. Anyone else have anything? Great.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Come back anytime. All right, we'll move on to 8.2, budget update. Dr. Guerin.
President Gresham, members of the board, cabinet, and guests, another item full of sunshine and roses. Deputy Superintendent Lori Garvey is going to present a budget update for us.
Thank you, Dr. Guerin. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Guerin, and cabinet. Today's budget update will include where we are with this current year, and then we will take a peek into what we know so far for next year. So as we start to recap our budget for this current year, we did receive last year $3.1 million in additional revenue. It wasn't all from the state. We did have some of our own set aside and our uncommitted budget balance carry forward that we added to what we received from the legislature to do many things last year, which we'll see on the next slide. We did receive last year from through that the legislature passed and Governor Hobbs agreed, passed as well, was this one-time funding in our maintenance and operations fund. It was $1,362,000. So it is important to note that it was one-time only money, especially in light of what you just heard from Ms. Hendricks, which is that there really isn't a lot of additional money being talked about right now. So the anticipation is that that money will not be continued past this year. So last year with those monies, the following things were passed. You know most of it here, the parity, the teacher staffing, but just to draw your attention to the bottom of the salaries and benefits, there was that retention stipend that was given with one-time only funds. It was budgeted at $435,000. The actual cost was a little bit more than that, which we'll look at on the next page. And then we also had some permanent subs at the elementary schools and MTA. We'll talk about that in a moment. But all those things were funded with that money. So now as we go forward and look at our budget projection, we would be remiss if we didn't look at all of our funds to see are there positions in other places that we need to absorb, because we need to look for that long-term sustainability throughout the district. So as I mentioned, there were the one-time funding. The retention stipend came in at $500,000, and the permanent subs are $255,000. ESSER 3, this is our last round of ESSER monies. They do expire in September of this year. However, we will, those monies will be spent by the end of this school year, so we won't have anything to carry forward for those first few months of school. But we have in there positions that we need to find funding sources for or decide what to do with those positions. They came to $366,000. As you know, the governing board approved 3 teacher on assignment positions, which some schools call deans, just so that we know. We have 3 out there, 2 at the middle schools and 1 at an elementary school. As it was reviewed, as the budget was reviewed in cabinet and talking to the sites, we've had, and this dean position was thought that it would be a pilot program. Let's see how it goes for 1 year, see if it's something that should go forward. And we did have one dean who did resign towards the beginning of the year, but still mid-year. We're still really trying to gather the data on how is it going. And we have actually one opening, so we only had 2 full-time deans this year. So Cabinet is making the recommendation that those positions do get absorbed into our maintenance and operations fund for those 2 positions. Let's get some more data for another year and see how those 2 positions will be allocated. Because we've only had 2, one has gone through attrition already, so it doesn't involve notifying anybody that they would not have a job next year. In addition, a student behavior specialist was added last year. This position has greatly helped out in our schools, and we really see that it's making a significant impact. We would like to continue funding that, and we are looking at using Medicaid funds for that. We receive funds from the state to help provide services to students who qualify for Medicaid. We receive money back. We have capacity within that budget, so we would like to absorb that position into there. So that takes care of those positions. These are a little bit further down the road, but the safety grants, and in June of 26, we have 7 counselors and 1 social worker. Nothing that we really need to talk about today, just to have that knowledge in our brain to keep it that down the road. And as I project out, I'll be presenting a 3-year budget to Budget Advisory. We'll look at that. It will be built in. Prop 123, the end date should be 6/25. I apologize for that. And this is what Mrs. Hendricks was talking about. It is set to expire June of 25. We've had the additional funding for 10 years. Governor Hobbs would like to get support from the legislature to get this on the ballot to extend it for another 10 years. And there's talk of maybe even a little bit more money, but for now, all we know is it's all in conversation. But just another note for us, won't impact next year's budget, but the year after. The one thing that we do know for next year is that by statute, we should receive the lesser of 2% or inflation on our base support level, so the formula amount that we get per student. And the 2% increase would be less than inflation. It's $98.29 per weighted ADM. And how does that look when we put it to numbers? What does this look for our projected budget? You can see there's the ADM increase up top of 45.5 ADM this year, which is very positive, and we'll get back to that in a second. But that 2% inflation results in $702,000 increase to our budget. Because that is the base support level, our override is based on, well, first of all, I'm skipping one. Our teacher experience index is going up next year, and we can increase our formula amount by that teacher experience index. So what happens is ADE gathers information from all school districts for this current year, and they calculate what is the average teacher experience for a teacher in Arizona. And then they compare your district against that, and if you are above the average, you get a little bit extra in funding to help offset the cost of the more veteran teachers. So our weight is going up for that, and we will receive, did I just tap something? Sorry. We will receive an additional $150,000. So the first 2 items combined come to $852,000. That is on our base support level on which our override is calculated. Our override is 15% in maintenance and operations. So the 15% on that $852,000 is $127,800. Then here's where this ADM increase comes in and this uncommitted budget balance carry forward. We are currently combing through our budget to see what do we project that budget balance to be at. I know that we don't want to slip under the 3%, but what would it be if we went down to 3%? It could actually be a little bit higher as we go through the year, but right now this is our best estimate. That $400,000 additional that we have in the carry forward really is mostly due to the a chunk of it to the increase in ADM because we didn't put, we did not spend that, so it's there, okay? And then what we do need to look at though is our maintenance and operation budget will be going down by that state aid supplement of that 1.3 million. So when we look at this increase in projected revenue, we only see an increase of 17,800 next year. And I'm just going to say, hold that though as a positive thought because it's not negative. So we bring that $17,800 forward. Dr. Lomley has been very busy doing teacher staffing and roll-up and working with the principals at each site to be, so looking at applying our student-teacher ratio as we roll up students from one grade to the other and being, at this point, knowing our budget situation, very, very tight on staffing. And so we are staffing some grades right up to the actual limit. In the past, we may have actually put out a teacher for that, but at the moment, we are not doing that. However, we are also being very, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but very aggressive about accepting the number of students who have applied for open enrollment. We are trying to accept as many students as we can that will fit into a school building, so we have to have a classroom for them. And then as we see those students come in through our process of accepting open enrollment applications, when they get their letters accepting them as students, they have 1 week to enroll, and really staying on top of that to make sure that we are capturing all the students, because we know the further that you go out past March, the more choice people have, and they get offers other places. So we really want them to know we have a place for you at Madison if this is where you want to be. So with that, if we put teachers out, I mean, if we get new students in, that we would add teachers for that. So just know that we see a really positive open enrollment season, and so we anticipate some good numbers from that, okay? But in that, we do have an overall reduction of 4.0 FTEs. And again, I just want to stress, this is not, for anybody who might be listening or principal in the audience, this is not to say that we are looking for a RIF. We are not looking for a RIF. We are looking to place our teachers. It's just that right now we are holding, and we also do through attrition, you do have people retire, resign, and so inevitably there are positions, okay? So, but overall, at this moment, we are showing a reduction of 4.0 FTEs in teachers. This includes actually allowing, bringing back the two deans. They are included in this, so they are accounted for, and we're still reducing for, okay? So that's 324,000 savings to our district. The retention stipends that I mentioned for the 500,000, that was one time only. So that money can come back into the budget. In there were the permanent subs at the elementary and middle, and MTA, sorry. Just really through a lot of conversation and looking at how those permanent subs have made an impact on the district, filling in for long-term openings, filling in where teachers even have left mid-year has been invaluable to us. We would like to continue that for the next year. They have been absorbed in the budget as well. Then we come down to medical insurance. Right now, this is an estimate. We don't know. We find out on March 1st what our increase is. It's averaged around 4% for the past 2 years. Our loss ratio is looking pretty good going into this season of renewals. So fingers are crossed it's not above 6% for $250,000. So that would be obviously a cost. ASRS is going down a smidge. It might not even be worth it to mention $5,700 savings, but I just always like to think if an employee looks at this, they know what's happening also with retirement for them. So when you look at the savings that we have in here, less the increase in medical, we actually add the decrease in projected expenditures to the increase in projected revenue increase. So it looks now like our bottom line is we are almost at $600,000 that we can look at going forward. And again, as we get more information and this picture continues to evolve, this is where we are. And just, if anybody's interested, it is about $355,000 for a 1% increase for all staff out of M&O. So just to kind of get that picture, but again, stress, even though it is bleak, I think we're weathering this, and I think that while we may not see what we've seen in the past, I just want to keep this in a positive place.
Thank you so much, Ms. Garvey. I'm sure we have lots of comments and questions. Ms. Kasi?
So we're done with all of the minimum wage that were part of the, are we or not?
Currently, our minimum wage that we have in the district is $15.50, I believe, and the minimum wage is going to $14.35 this January. So even it goes up every January. Even if it goes up in January, it would have to be pretty significant to go over our $15.50, which may be adjusted for any increase that might be given.
Okay, good, thanks.
Anyone else? Questions?
I just want to thank you for, it is so helpful to have this information and the way you present it for us to understand, and I think for the community to understand how all these things interact. Thank you again.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Garvey. And I just want to, Ms. Spear, do you have?
After you're done.
No, go ahead. I will wait. Sorry, I didn't see.
One of the things that, first off, thank you for all of your hard work, always. One of the things that I find in discussing with constituents is the confusion over budgets, over educational funding. There's so much noise out there. We just heard about it from Ms. Hendricks. Is this presentation or anything similar to it available for public consumption?
Oh, yes. Well, anybody in the public can log into the Madison website. You can go under governing board and you can log into you can go into the meeting, and this presentation is out there for the public. We can post it on the website too. Budget advisory does get posted out there. This presentation is part of the budget advisory, so that presentation will be out there for public consumption. And the recording of this, if you want to hear my talking through it, is also out there if anybody would like to actually listen to the board meeting. And of course, my name again for anybody out there that might not know is Lori Garvey, and you can always contact me at the district, and I would be more than happy to talk with you.
Thank you so much. I think having it just available on the website and being able to direct constituents directly to the website is just incredibly helpful. And I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Spear. Yes, not only are we required to be extremely transparent, but we definitely strive for that either way. So, Ms. Thompson.
I just wanted to echo my appreciation to Ms. Garvey and her team for this presentation. I also wanted to add on the front about information available on the broader budget. Several times a year, a group of economists, I know this sounds riveting, a group of economists meet to advise the legislature on the state of finances. They just recently had their meeting last week. It's about an hour long. You hear from everyone from economists that advise the legislature for literally decades to the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, and also the state treasurer on the state of finances for the state as well. The thing that was heartening to me, who has been a person who's watched these for years, is that in the presentations there was not talk of cuts to education, and there was also a recognition that there have been for years things that have been labeled one-time funding that really aren't one-time funding for education, like maintenance for buildings is not just a one-time funding for the state every year. So when they're talking about the state's deficit, they're doing it with a lens of, we're not just talking about what we put in the budget as annual spending, but the things that really should be in there, which is an improvement from the past. So I think having that lens in those discussions and our very clear lens here about what's available, what what is one time, what we're going to be spending, what we're holding back very cautiously to make sure that is incredibly helpful. So thank you, Ms. Garvey.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Yes, I think this, Dr. Guerin, I'm so sorry. Everybody was.
So sorry, can't help it, President
Keep going.
Gresham. I just want to take a moment to thank Cabinet, specifically Ms. Garvey, even though this year is going to be a little more challenging, because she plans not for 1 year, but 3 years, 5 years out. Her thoughtful leadership and planning allows Madison to stay healthy even when things get lean. So truly grateful for that. I also want to thank Ms. Marshall and Dr. Lomoli. They have been working so closely together to be responsive on optimizing capacity. When we accept open enrollment, looking, do we need to add a position? And that responsiveness and that collaboration I'm extremely grateful for. Mr. George has also been helping with middle school scheduling and staffing in regards to this area, and the principals have been incredible. So it's great to see the teamwork when there's not a lot of wiggle room. So I'm very grateful.
Absolutely. We're so lucky to have such an amazing team. I just want to point out a few things. Like, this shows you how important it is. You know, we really rely on the counselors, the dean of students, our permanent subs. Like, these are important things that and people have noticed. And I get, for what it's worth, I get comments all the time about the dean of how big a difference the dean of students has made. The parents are so happy to have them. Of course, the counselors and everything. So, you know, thank you again for everything, because hopefully we can continue those positions, and we'll see what happens. Ms. Thompson?
If I could just add to that, those are non-classroom dollars. So whenever somebody says they should go to classroom teachers, absolutely, we need to support classroom teachers, but there's so many things within a district that are done to support our students, their bodies, their minds, their souls, all of it, to make them the best learners they can be when they're here, that it isn't as simple as just saying more money for our teachers. It's important, but all of those things are making an impact on our kids every day.
Absolutely. And hopefully people have noticed that we do prioritize our teacher salaries, but as Ms. Thompson said, it takes a whole village. Those are all super important positions. And I want to add that Prop 123 only exists because the state refused to fund our schools for so long. And that was a solution to a lawsuit that they lost and they were supposed to pay. So ideally, we wouldn't even have a Prop 123. They would have funded our schools in the first place. But rant over. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Where are we? Yes, okay, we have some board policies for second read. Dr. Guerin?
President Gresham, members of the board, cabinet, and guest, and anyone watching virtually. I am so excited to announce that this is the end of this round of board policies, and Assistant Superintendent Marshall will be finishing up with her second reads.
Thank you, President Gresham, members of the board, and members of cabinet. As we look at 9.2 through 9.7, this is the second read. There are no changes from the first read that was presented. And as a reminder, all of the changes to these policies are legislatively driven. And so we've already had them in practice due to the legislative requirement, and this is just catching policy up to legislation.
And thank you again for taking care of all these. Do we have, and there's no changes from the first read?
That is correct, no changes.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Marshall? Comments? Okay. I'll accept, Ms. Spear.
I move that we approve the board policies for the second read as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Ms. Spear, seconded by Ms. Thompson. And we've passed those unanimously. And we have a few more action items. 10.1, Dr. Guerin, please introduce this.
Yes, President Gresham, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. 10.1 and 10.2, I will turn over to Dr. Lomeli.
Thank you, Dr. Guerin. Madam President, members of the board, cabinet, we bring these items before you today so that we can approve our contract templates for our certified staff and our salary schedule so that we can issue contracts to our certified staff soon and start to make offers for those hard-to-fill positions.
Thank you. Any questions on this one? Comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm happy to make a motion.
Please do.
You would accept. I move that we approve the 24-25 certified teacher salary schedule, the 24-25 RN LPN salary range, and the 24-25 certified support salary range as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Ms. Kazi, seconded by Mr. Holcomb. That was a mouthful. Please vote.
Truly.
And that has passed. 10.2, certificate teacher contract templates. Do you want to go, Dr. Guerin, or go straight to Dr. Lomeli?
I think Dr. Lomeli already covered it if we're ready for a motion. Dr. Lomeli, did you have anything to add?
That is correct. This is our contract templates so that we can get those approved so we can issue contracts.
And I'll take a motion. Anyone?
Thank you. I move that we approve the certificated teacher contract templates as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes. And our last action item, 10.3, community ed. Guerin.
Yes, President Gresham, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. I'll turn it over to Ms. Marshall for community education rates, our second read.
Thank you, President Gresham, members of the board, and members of cabinet. We'll pull up the presentation from December, slide 7. Ms. Breiling, our Director for Community Education, presented an overview. This rate increase will still keep Madison mid-range with our surrounding programs for early childhood, preschool, or the Madison Adventure Club, the before and after school. And as a reminder, here are our current rates and our proposed rates for next year, and we're asking the board for approval for the proposed rates.
Thank you. And just to clarify, this on the slide where it says MAC K through 8, that's MTA, correct?
That is correct. The different rates are because the schools have different arrival and dismissal times, and so it's based on the number of hours that are available for the program. Thank you, Ms. Gresham.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll take a motion.
Move to approve the community education rates as presented.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Thompson, seconded by Ms. Kazi. Please vote. And thank you for being here, Ms. Brayling, just in case. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. And almost to the end, 11.1, future meetings. Dr. Guerin, anything?
Yes, President Gresham, members of the board and cabinet. So we are ready to have a quite busy spring. Our agendas are filling up. So on our February 20th, we'll have our MTA school showcase with You Make a Difference Shining Star. And then Ms. Marshall's department will present a social studies adoption update. And we will also have an MTA math adoption. So social studies will be first read, MTA math will be for approval. And then the March 5th meeting, we're looking at holding an executive session for a budget update, IBN and interest-based negotiation update, and potentially a real estate update. We also discussed potentially focusing on board goals during that executive session, so we can work on that. We are planning a food service update, a bond update, potentially a real estate closing, and the second read of the social studies adoption update. March 26th, if we don't have the IBN budget advisory at that meeting, we could also do it at this meeting, so we'll pick the best date. So we have some executive sessions coming up. And then this is so exciting, we have a group of former Madison students that have started some sort of Facebook page and have stayed together in honor of celebrating their former teacher, and they're going to gather here together, and we can honor. So really incredible. It's very goosebumpy, and I want to thank Ms. Humphreys for organizing this. And so we will head into spring. That meeting will be after spring break. So if you want to scroll down, we just have a couple more. Okay, the computers. Oh, there we go. We'll have a Madison Highland prep report. Very excited about Meadows highlighting their memory project. If you haven't heard about that, stay tuned. And we're looking at providing a science of reading science of reading training update. I think that's.
Thank you. Any questions on the future meetings, comments? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn. If any.
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. Oh, sorry.
Point of order. It was actually seconded by Ms.
Ms.
Thompson.
Thompson.
If that's okay. Seems like not that important, but I agree with her.
Oh, I should vote. I agree.
We want to be done.
But I thought it might be important.
And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.